if more people are coming in, that can be, if one of the co-hosts can let them in, that would be great. Okay, welcome everybody. This is our, I don't know how many of these we've done, but our weekly online chat. My name is Jane Stevenson. I'm one of the founders of Empowerment.work. And we've been doing this weekly chat since we had to go online. That's what we had to do, so we went online. That's where we are. Empowerment.work has a mission to help unemployed internationals get back to work. So a lot of the things that we do are around how to help to do that. This year, it was our mission, one of our missions, one of our goals was to build community. And then COVID-19 happened. And actually, it's really nice to build a community here online. It's developing our community in different ways and getting more and more people to know about us. So we try to take a different topic each week and try and get tips from experts. And this week, our experts are Kat and Christina Neal, Katrina Neal, Katrina Neal and Chris Neal, who are from Henry James Recruitment. And they live up the street from me, actually, but they're in a different building because of COVID-19. They're not in the same building. Anyway, they're going to do a presentation, their take on the answers they get from their clients about people who go for interview, that they're sent for interview. They've got a lot of experience in this thing, so it's going to be really interesting. After that, we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and we can throw some questions that you can discuss in the breakout rooms. And then we'll come back to the centre and we can finish off with the question and answer session. So Chris and Kat, if you could take over from here and start sharing your screen and presentation. Thanks very much. You need to put your sound on.
It is. Thank you.
Are we there?
Are we there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, you're there.
Okay.
Okay, good. Right. If you just excuse me 1 second, I'll just get the presentation ready. That didn't work.
First one up there, so.
Yeah, but
Okay. Yeah.
It's all right. We'll just talk amongst ourselves. It's fine. Don't worry about it. There you go.
there we go. I wanted it to go straight into the first slide, but it wouldn't allow me to do that. So I've got to go right the way back. Oh dear.
Just do it. It's fine.
No, sorry. It's
Scroll up there.
yeah.
Fine. That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
Hey! We practiced and there we go. It didn't work quite how we thought it would. Okay.
All right. Can you hear me, everybody? Is it? Jane was breaking up quite a bit. Is the line okay?
Yeah. I was breaking up again, was I? I always do when there's a lot of people here.
Okay, great. Well, look, a quick introduction to put some of the advice into context. So we have a recruitment business. My name's Chris. I've been in recruitment for 25 years. I'll tell you 3 main things, all that you need to know to put my work and advice into context. First of all, I'm international, so I'm British, based in Amsterdam and Frankfurt. I speak German and Dutch, and therefore that helps me to work with my client base, which happens to be technology companies from America setting up in Europe. So first thing, I'm international. Second thing is roles. I've probably recruited every function over the years, but currently we focus on country managers and salespeople. But if you are an IT director, a head of finance, or whatever, I've done most roles in my time. And last but not least, I work very closely with clients. So the thing that Katrina and I can share with you today is the direct feedback from clients. You can always buy a book on interview tips, etc. But we're going to focus on the top 6 reasons that clients very intimately and informally give us, either face-to-face, on screen or on the phone, as to why interviews aren't progressing. So that's the context of my my background today.
Yes. And my name's Katrina, and Chris and I run the Henry James recruitment together, Henry James Consulting together. My background, I'm from a banking and retail background originally. I started off work at Barclays Bank. I've worked for Body Shop, I've worked for Levi's and Benetton, and most recently the largest company I worked for was Liberty Global, who are based in the Netherlands, out at Schiphol-Rijk. You probably know that they used to own Ziggo and Virgin Media. I think they're selling everything off at the moment. At Henry James, I tend to take care of the candidate experience. That's my main role. I want to make sure that everybody has a good experience that is as pleasant as possible, because I really appreciate how stressful looking for a job can be. So I'm sort of like the liaison really between the client and the candidate to make sure that's smooth. I also coordinate the research on the companies and finding the candidates. And over the years I've done hundreds of interviews, the majority of which have either been on the phone or have been virtual. We use Zoom and Skype a lot, because I tend to do the first interview. So it's almost like the screening interview, and then Chris tends to take over face-to-face, although we both do that as well. But the majority of mine has been virtual. That's me.
Great. Should we
Okay.
kick on to our...
Yeah, so our first thing about the client feedback. It's the 6, as you said, it's the 6 most common reasons for interview failure. And the first 3 are things that you can easily change. You know, it's simple. So the first one. Yeah,
I think our goals, summarising our presentation today, we're going to give you 6 areas to talk about directly from clients. And we're going to sort of guarantee you that you will feel confident about addressing the first 3 by the end of today. And the other 3 will be work in progress. We've deliberately kept the language of the client here. I don't want to talk about, feedback is communication skills aren't good enough. Unfortunately, this very blunt feedback of they talk too much is, even at a very senior level. I've recruited CIOs for major PLCs in the past, chief information officers. Talking too much is a challenge for all of us.
Yeah.
I should know, I'm from a working class Irish family. We just talk the whole time.
Yes.
So it's a challenge we all face, and it's particularly challenging in interviews. But I'm going to give you 2 tips to think about. The first one is one reason why people who are often very good at presenting and even selling speak too much at interview is that presenting your personal story about yourself individually is something that you don't regularly do. So think of all the times you present, you have meetings, you present a company or a project presentation, but you don't actually talk about your life motivation, your hobbies, could even be your upbringing, why you left IBM 10 years ago, and why you'd like to join Microsoft next week. It's a completely different presentation. So the takeaway is, it sounds simple, but it's to practice. Now, whether that's practicing in your mind, going over why you left XYZ company and joined a larger firm, or other way around, practicing with a friend, or actually, one tip is to try and speak to recruiters early on who tend to give you critiques early on your CV and your presentation style. Yeah. But that's a quick takeaway about why people might be so verbose at interview. It's this personal story.
It is. And what I would say from that is use a framework to frame your answers when you're practicing. Now you can go online and you can find the 10 most popular questions within your industry that are asked at interview. You'll find stuff like this all over YouTube and LinkedIn. There's always somebody there who's got some good questions. And I would say that within that, you practice using the STAR method. So you look at the situation, you explain the task, you explain the action and the response. So, and that's sort of like the actual, you know, what the outcome of it was. And so use that framework, and so that way you can keep it neat. You're not rambling. You're not going to, you know, for example, if somebody asks you a question that is like, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? You know, I mean, it's such a dreadful interview question, but people ask it all the time. You know, think about, you know, you can use this, think, right, the situation. So where will I, you know, where am I going to be living? You know, the task, how am I going to get there? What actions do I need to get to that? And what the outcome's going to be. That's just as an example. So
yeah, and I think the final point, which again, you know, we see very senior people making mistakes on, is a simple point to offer back when you're being interviewed, especially online. Simply that you've started to answer a question, and you offer back. Does that answer the question? Would you like more information on how I set up an international subsidiary? And so often the person will say, no, that's fine. We've got that. Yeah. If you monologue, either face-to-face or online, it's emotionally draining for the interviewer.
But record yourself practicing with somebody. It's also good to practice with somebody that you actually knows your industry. So maybe your mum doesn't understand how to, you know, about programming or whatever it is. And so, you know, somebody who understands what it is that you're talking about, so that they can say, oh yes, I understand that was good. Rather than saying, oh yes, dear, that was wonderful. Yes. Aren't you clever? So that's that one.
My mum was very critical, actually, but yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the second point that we get from is the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, at all levels, we get this.
All the time.
They are very unkind. In reality, I put a note at the end there. Be honest and score yourself out of 10. Let's just take an honesty audit here. We've all done it. We've all turned up to a business meeting or a job interview and would score our research and prep at around 3 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. Anything less than 8 isn't good. It's not worth doing, but we've all done it. We've flicked on the mobile phone, or we say we've read the brief and we've looked at the company website. That's just simply not enough. One of the reasons that people do this, we all have done this, is that we're not sure if we want the job. Let's be honest. So you go along for a chat. And have you ever had this experience? You have the chat, they tell you that they are just about to take over, I don't know, the Ajax football club next week, and you're a mad football fan and you'd love to do the marketing for Ajax. You immediately sit up and try and show a bit of motivation, interest in the last 2 minutes, and you've killed it.
Yeah.
You go along for a chat and you didn't prepare. So you've got to, if you qualify out, that's fine. But if you go along, promise me you'll be, you'll do a lot of research.
This also applies to the rubber stamp HR chat as well. Yeah. I think a lot of people, you know, they say, oh yeah, we're in the final stages, just need to have a quick chat with HR. Do not go into any conversation with HR expecting that you're just going to have a chat. That's not going to happen. They're going to interview. Yeah. They're probably going to give you a better interview than the person who's potentially going to be your line manager. Yeah. Be prepared.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a tip, you all know about research, you all know about preparation. You must be thinking, great, I'll go onto LinkedIn on my phone 10 minutes before, look at the people, look at the company. That's pretty basic. One tip is just, you'd be amazed how many people don't do this. Just do a plain Google search on the company, the division, and all the people that not only will definitely be interviewing you, but ones which may come into the interview. How many times has that happened where suddenly the head of finance comes in? And you could have looked them up on LinkedIn. So, but a fresh Google search could tell you that you're just about to go to Salesforce software, and they're just about to buy a company, a CRM company, or another software company where you've worked exactly in that area before. And although it's a rumor, you do need to know that information before going into interviews. So, so we put up a slide here. If anybody, we're trying to make light of it, but it's only a half joke. If anybody's seen The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Lisbeth Salander is the super researcher who finds out absolutely everything about people online before.
Yeah. She's not done that, she's doing it legally, so
yes.
Make sure what you're doing is legal.
Yeah, don't hack. But
Yeah.
even if you haven't seen the film, fantastic book,
Yeah.
fantastic film, and just click onto YouTube and you'll know what we mean. So so think like Google, go afresh with your research, and and make sure you're prepared.
And really do explore all your connections that you could possibly have there, whether they're people that you know. You can find out so much on LinkedIn if there's somebody there, and it's such a great thing if you know who is actually working there, you know a little bit about them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the third one is, well, this is a bit, it's weird, isn't it? Because it's basically the basics. Now, this actually happens, you know, we get a client comes back and says, oh yeah, no, yeah, I got through to them, their phone didn't work, and then they only had 15 minutes, they were late getting on the call, you know, there's 101 things, and basically what the client says, it was a mess. And that's what we really want to help stop. That there's no reason, no need for it whatsoever.
Yeah, and just to share, you know, every segment of the market's guilty of this. We have recruited chairmen and non-exec directors, and again, it's a very human thing. If you don't get strategic about all of your interviews and plan ahead, of course, we've had very senior chairmen rushing out of a meeting. It took too long. I didn't have time to prepare properly on my laptop. We couldn't get a connection. But we've got meetings set up internationally, and the whole thing just falls apart from lack of checking. So
so well, what I would say is, I mean, I've done, as I say, I've done hundreds of these virtual interviews, and I've got some tips. I mean, you can go online once again, and there's loads of people out there who can give advice about how to prepare for a virtual interview and what to do. These are the ones I would say that the top few that really I think are very important. First one, test your technology. Test it the day before, test it an hour before. Really, really important. Now, we had a test just before we came on here, and I tested the slideshow and it was fine. And then, of course, we went through the slideshow. I come to put it up on here now, and I ended up on the end slide. So I hadn't prepared properly for that. I think, hands up, you know, it happens, but I'm not in an interview. Anyway, also be on time, you know, just a few minutes early. Don't be there, you know, half an hour early. Don't join the room when you're on a Zoom call, the waiting room, you know, 15 minutes early. That kind of, you know, you're just sitting there and that puts pressure on. 5 minutes is fine, or a couple of minutes is fine. If you're on a phone call, check your phone signal. There's lots of dodgy phone areas, you know, and if you're in a dodgy area, don't then walk around on your phone because you will lose the signal. I mean, I'm telling you, this is the obvious, but you'll be amazed at how many of these things go wrong. Be in a quiet space where nobody can hear you. If you have any possibility of being overheard, have headphones on so that nobody can hear the other person's conversation, but keep it as quiet as you can. Also, a little thing, but have a glass of water at hand, because it's when you're talking you get dry mouth, and that can be really difficult. Another one, and this is something that has really been highlighted with all the Zoom calls, light yourself from the front, not from the back. If you've got a light at the back of you, you become a LinkedIn silhouette. People can't see you, and if you're trying to make a virtual connection with somebody online, they won't be able to see your eyes, they won't be able to see any expressions, or, you know, monitor any enthusiasm or anything like that. Make sure your mobile phone's on silent. Be appropriately addressed, be appropriately dressed. So find out what the dress code is at the company that you're going to. And I would always say, be a little, if it's, you know that they're dressed very casual, but I would always say just be a little bit more overdressed than under. Have the camera angle pointing down at you, not up your nose, Christopher.
Guilty.
Set the scene behind you. Now, you see we've got a virtual thing here, which I think is fantastic. Zoom's just brought this out, so it's brilliant. So we have a photograph of the Monaco Dam Harbour. Now, if that wasn't there, it'd just be a blank wall and a radiator, which is also absolutely fine. But set your scene like it's an Instagram post or a movie scene, or you're selling your house. Move things out of the way, or have another good thing is if you have like if you've got trophies or something, or you've got awards that are relevant to your job, have them on display as well, so that you can see them, so they're prominent, because that's a good talking point. But keep it really so that it looks nice. Monitor your body language. Now, of course, I'm waving my arms around like mad here, so you film yourself. Once again, monitor it. If you are going crazy with your arms, like I say, mine's moving, you need to know what that's going to look like. So film yourself answering the test questions. You're supposed to look into the camera, not at the person on the screen. So, I'm looking all around the place at the moment here, but look into the camera. And I think, you've also got to be authentic. You've got to be the best version of yourself online. And it can be very difficult bringing that across online anyway. But if you've got all of these things in place, you're going to be able to relax, and you're going to be able to be your best virtual self.
Dogs and toddlers, were we going to talk about
yes.
that?
Yeah, we were going to, actually, I think I'm going to write a book about that. I am going to write a book. I'm going to call it Mobiles, Dogs and Toddlers, I think I'm going to call it. All the interruptions,
you'd be, again, completely amazed. Everybody accepts that people will be often taking that call from home. But, the world of virtual interviewing is full of mobile phones ringing in the middle. Sometimes they take it. They even take it because they say it's urgent. Dogs coming in, toddlers, etc. There's usually a baseball bat in the background, maybe an American football, some cups and saucers and a really untidy bookcase. But we're talking about recruitment.
An ironing board. We don't want your
an ironing board, yeah. So we are talking about.
Jane and I had that.
Yeah, we are talking about an interview with the HR director or the CEO. So it's a different call than you'd normally be taking. So should we have a quick time check?
Yeah, well,
we're halfway through.
Yeah, roundabout. But I was just going to say as well that those first three, that's the three that you can very easily.
It's about
address.
effort for the first
easily
three.
Addressed.
Yeah.
The next 3 points are a real learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Shall we just check with Jane? If can I just check our timing if we're halfway through?
We're fine.
We go. Okay. Carry on. Okay. So I'm sure you've heard. Maybe we hear this more than you, because clients are more direct with the third-party recruiter, as you can imagine. They can be very blunt, very unfair with this line. But if they feel that, it is incredibly hard to sell against it. They may have seemed not motivated, but don't worry, it was just an off day. They are really keen for the next interview. Once you feel this from a candidate, it's very hard to win the person round again, because we all know that if you're not motivated for the role and you get it, it's a very, tricky relationship right from the get-go.
And I think it's hard. It's very hard to articulate motivation over the phone. That's something that you really have to work on and think about why you want the job and how you're going to explain why you want the job to them. But also when you're on camera, it is a little easier, because you can lean in, you can be motivated, you can smile a lot, you can show motivation from your body language. But yeah, it's a tricky one. So so we've got some takeaways from this.
Yeah.
But this is going to be discussed in the breakout room.
Okay.
Well,
yeah. So I think all these things are common sense, but definitely not common practice. So our tip is to articulate the motivation. So you really don't have to be, you know, we work with Californian software companies. I'm from London, you know, nobody from London from my generation is going to jump up and down at an interview and punch the air about how wonderful a company is. We just don't operate like that. So, I would recommend just verbalizing it towards the end, because really you're just giving them feedback, saying that well, look, just to clarify, what interests me about this role is 1 and 2, maybe 3 points. Because they often say to us, well, you say they're motivated and they say they're motivated, but they didn't tell us. At no point did they communicate that with us. And I think, you know, especially if your personality is fairly reserved, or you're from a reserved culture, it can be a little, maybe even embarrassing to be so direct about that. Maybe people feel it's salesy. It's not. It's just feedback. Just articulate why this role interests you, where you see the matches before the end of the meeting, virtual or face to face.
Yeah. So that's one point. The next point that we have from clients is, and this, I'm sure that people who've been for job interviews and been turned down, we just didn't click. It's a culture fit. And that's very difficult for a recruiter to feedback to a candidate. But the client was more than happy to tell us, oh no, we just didn't click. And so, you know, it's like, right, okay. So there's can be a couple of reasons from that. They feel that you don't have the right experience. They don't feel that they'll fit into the team.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, it does go back to the research preparation piece. You want to be authentic. You want to take on the right opportunity for you. So can we have some honesty, of course? You know, if it really isn't the right culture and you wouldn't fit, there are times, of course, where you take that on board, and that's just not a match. But it's amazing how little research people do on the company culture before they go into an interview. And it's amazing how much you can find out. So by looking on YouTube for presentations from people, not so much the HR presentation that's on the website of how wonderful it is to work here, where everyone's all smiles, but you'd be amazed, especially for big brands, there's loads of informal stuff, especially on the likes of Instagram and YouTube, where people are being interviewed. So that instead of it being described as a win-win informal team culture, you really do get the impression, let's say from Accenture, that they do tend to be super bright people who really praise intellectualism, for instance, which other companies don't necessarily. And you get that sort of, what I would say is maybe the slightly hidden culture, which you should expect at interview, and then see whether there is, you know, a match for you at that point.
You also get companies who quite often say, oh no, we have, you know, we've got a ping pong table and we have, you know, beer on Fridays. And so that's part of the culture as well. And if that's not something that you really are interested in, you've got to bear that in mind as well.
Yeah.
So, so, you know, we were saying, as you were just saying, you need some common connections from this. I mean, if you can give some personal details to them as well. I think, you know, we had
a France candidate.
Yeah, the French guy. He was the second choice candidate for this role, and he went on. We thought, oh, I don't think he's going to get it. We thought this other chap was going to get it, who's from the direct competition, so he would have been great to go straight in there. But this guy, turns out he was just chatting. He talked to them. He told them some personal things about himself. He got 2 kids the same age as the guy who was interviewing, and he liked cycling. So that was it. He became the preferred candidate because they felt that he had a better cultural fit with the company. So, you know,
that's right. That culture side, it is a killer. It's an absolute challenge for all us recruiters. The really well qualified candidate who's really keen to join, and I think the point we're making is the perception is there's no fit. It didn't feel like a click. Recruitment is emotional. It should be more of a science. The best people should get the best jobs. It doesn't work like that. And so if that click is not in, that connection, should we say, is not in the room, it can often be a block from that line manager for you getting into a company. So good.
And that just brings us on to our final point, that, you know, they've interviewed them and they think, oh, they're not qualified for the role at all. Oh, of course they are. You know, why we would just put anybody forward if they weren't. But sometimes it could be that the CV hasn't got enough information on it, or they've asked you some questions and you just can't talk through the process of the actual role of what's actually you're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's once again, it's such a hard one to come back from. And let's just say they're not qualified for the role, they have no experience in Brazil, something like that. It's something you can't really kick against, but you know in your heart of hearts that the client is actually being quite unfair, because you know that the work in Brazil is not really a key part of it. So this, well, that's it.
Yeah. So that's it.
Shall we summarise?
Yeah. So we've
How
got
are we for time?
summary. I think we've gone way over.
Okay.
I think we've waffled on. We've totally ignored our first point, and we've
Too
talked
much.
too much.
Can we look at the?
So these are the 6 points to consider.
Yeah. Would you like to
maybe take a
screenshot of that?
I can share the presentation as well. I can share it as a PDF afterwards, so everybody can see that as well.
Yeah, I think our summary here is a point that you're very used to in business is be strategic, not tactical. Let's be honest, we've got busy lives, families, commitments, and when we go tactical with recruitment, these are the sort of areas in which we can fail. If you're strategic about it, you'll be double checking all these key points as you progress your journey.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so that's us.
Okay, are we passing over to you now for?
Yes, because Jane's audio is a little bit crackly, I'm going to go ahead and kick off the breakout rooms. But thank you so much, Chris and Katrina. There's a lot of good little nuggets in there, so I know I learned a lot. And we're going to, send you into breakout rooms. And we have, let me pull up, we have